Hello, everyone. I'm just watching this webinar fill up with all of our attendees. Just want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us to talk about the changes to the exam fee names and amounts with Susan Hollins and Jessica Ryan. I just want to start with a little introduction. My name is Sierra Hatcher and I'm a comms coordinator, and I'll be supporting on this webinar. And I want to introduce you to Susan. She's our Chief Educational Officer, and Jessica, who is our Educational Manager. And they're going to be taking you through a short slide deck and talking to you about these changes. And at the end, we're going to answer any questions that you might have. And this will be followed up by another webinar in a couple of weeks, where we're going to get even more in depth in this topic. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. There's also a raise your hand capability. And I'm going to turn it over to Susan now to begin going through the slides with you.
Okay, thank you, Sierra. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and probably good night for some of you. Thank you all for joining this webinar. We appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to engage with us on the online exam fees and the online exams. The way this will work is that I'll talk about the fee structure and also timelines. Then I'm going to hand over to Jessica, who's actually going to talk through some of the basic processes around the online exams. I should add that we have another webinar in preparation at the moment, and that should be with you within the next couple of weeks. And at that webinar, we're actually going to go into a bit more detail about how you as an AST will be managing the online exams process, and also what your learners will see when they take an online exam. So this is actually the first of two webinars around online exams. Just to reiterate, as Sierra says, we will be taking questions at the end of this webinar. But if you think of something in the meantime and you want to make sure that we come to that, just pop it in the chat. We're all monitoring the chat, and as long as the question is relevant to this particular subject, we'll get to the questions at the end of this webinar. Okay, so could we move on to the first slide, please, Sierra? Right, so this is the information that we've already put out in a mailing and blog and also on the Facebook page. And I just wanted to be really clear that everybody is aware of this new pricing structure. The fees that you see below are for the actual taking of the exam, and these are payable by the learner. There was some confusion as to whether the trainer, the amount of fees that we're collecting from the trainers for the certification is going up. The certification fee, the part that the AST retains, is not changing. The exam fee is an additional cost which SCA is incurring, which is going to be passed on to the learner for taking the online exam. And so the combination of the existing certification fee plus the exam fee is the new administrative fee. To reiterate, the exam fee is paid by the learner, and it's collected by SCA at the same time as the normal certification fees. So you will only get one invoice. At the moment, you're invoiced when you send in mark pass, you're sent an invoice for that particular course, for the particular learner. That won't change. You'll still be sent one invoice. You won't be sent multiple invoices, one for an exam, one for certification. So at the moment, you'll send an invoice for the certification fee. In the future, you'll be sent an invoice for the administrative fee. Okay, the next slide, please, Sierra. And why are we having to make this, sorry, the previous slide again. Why do we have to make this charge? Well, we are paying a substantial license fee for online exams to a third-party provider. And I think we've all agreed in the past when we've had AST meetings, AST Live, just informal engagement with trainers, that online exams is the way we should be moving. But this comes at a cost. It's a cost of the license that we pay. It's a cost in terms of staffing, administrative costs. And we've covered a lot of this already in the blog. And then the second point I want to make is that a number of you have said, well, you know, the work that you do is generating a lot of revenue for SCA. No doubt about that, it is. But the revenue from SCA is for the association as a whole. Some of it comes to education, but we are also part of the wider SCA. We have research, we have sustainability, and all of this work feeds into education. We benefit from that work that's taking place. So yes, we are generating a lot of revenue within education, but that revenue is for the whole association. And just one final point I'd like to make, that certification fees, those fees which are charged to the learner, for which you retain 50% and we invoice you for 50%, they haven't changed for the last 3 years. We haven't raised them in 3 years. And we're actually about to enter the 4th year. In fact, we have entered the 4th year of an unchanged certification fee. Okay, and then the next slide, please. So when are these exams going to be implemented? We have talked a lot about dates. And to be honest, you know, this is a new process for us as a unified association. There has been a lot of work in getting these exams in place. It has involved looking again at some of the curriculum, reordering points in the curriculum in order that they match the exams. It has involved the development of many, many additional exam questions, because as you're all aware, the written exam is an exam of about 20, 25, depends on the exam that you're taking questions. In order for us to generate randomized tests, whereby each learner may be taking a different test from another learner, we need to have a much wider pool of questions. So we have subject matter experts, volunteers who are working with us, who always have done as creators. And there's been a lot of work in developing these additional questions. In addition, there's a lot of systems work around this. The infrastructure has required a lot of work. It's involved integrating our third-party exams provider into our SCA systems. And then on top of that, of course, we are undertaking translations. We already translate into 7 different languages, but for the online exams, that pool of translations has been increased to 12 different languages. And we've estimated, just by looking at the certification history over the last 6 months, that pretty much 95% of learners will be covered by the new translated exams. So of course, all of this takes work. We have to have testing. So with that in mind, we're looking at a go live date of June for the foundation level exams, August for intermediate, and we don't want to set a final date for professional, but by the last quarter of 2019. What we do want to do is to make sure you have at least 1 month's notice of go live. We're not going to say, oh, next week we're going to have online exams. We want to give you as much notice as possible. So we have agreed that we would like to give you at least 1 month's notice. And the way we'll give that notice is by reaching you as many different means as possible, be it Facebook, be it a banner on the website, be it a mailing, be it a blog post. You know, we want to make sure we're getting this information to you, as many of you as possible. We have staff in different countries of the world who can help us with this. But to repeat, we want to give at least 1 month's notice of the go live date. So with that in mind, obviously, we realise that you'll have to prepare your marketing materials to reflect the changed administrative fee. And that's why we are giving this as much information now as possible so you can start to work on that. Point there that has been made by staff, all learners must pay the exam fee. If, of course, your learner does not pass the exam, then there's no fee to collect. We don't collect a certification fee if a learner doesn't pass an exam. We won't collect an examination fee, administrative fee, if the learner doesn't pass an exam. There's no change from what we already have. We have put in place a policy whereby if a learner is unable to take an online exam, there's certainly a process whereby we can ensure that nobody is disadvantaged by online exams. There are many reasons why a learner might not be able to take an online exam. It could be that no translation is available. We're certainly not expecting learners to be, taking an exam in a language which is not their home language. And so in that case, a paper-based exam will be made available. We also recognise there may be issues around internet access in certain parts of the world, access to computers, laptops in order to take the exam. There may be issues around disability or temporary illness or permanent illness. There's a whole host of reasons why a learner may not be able to take an online exam We have policies in development which will cover that. And to repeat, we do not want anyone to be disadvantaged by a new online exams process. And then finally, as I've already mentioned, we are now translating into 12 languages. We did identify those languages, I think, in a previous mailing. I will try and recall them now. They are Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Dutch, Polish, Greek, Turkish, Russian, Arabic, and I am missing one. Did I say German? Anyway, those are the 12 languages which are covering, it's around about 95% of our learners. So that's a brief overview of the pricing, the reason why we've introduced this pricing structure, and just to give you some assurance about the implementation dates, and particularly the fact that we want to give at least 1 month's notice of a go live date. So please be aware, if you want to have any questions, please put these in the chat window and we'll come to questions at the end of the whole of this webinar. So now I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Jessica Ryan, who's going to take you through some of the basics. Thanks, Jess.
Susan. Thanks. Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to go over the basics of the actual process that you'll be following. But I do want to preface this with reminding everyone that, as Susan mentioned at the beginning, we will have a follow-up webinar where we will be going through this in detail, and you will actually see it live as you see it as an AST, logging in and going through the process and what the learner sees with the exams. So this is just a very basic general overview, and we will also be sending out a user guide as well that we are finalizing. So I just want to let you know that this is not the only opportunity you have to see kind of what the process will look like, but this, we wanted to at least give you an overview right now. So as you have in the past, you'll announce a course in the calendar through your AST portal, and that'll be approved. The course will run, and then in the calendar, when you go back into your portal, after the course is finished, you'll mark who's passed the practical exam. So in the past, it's just been pass, fail, request certificates. And now there will be a pass practical exam, and then you will scroll for those people that have passed it. There will be a button that says send written instructions. And immediately when you click that, the learner receives the email immediately, as in point 3, what it says. The learner receives the email immediately once you select that, and they get instructions on taking the online exam. It gives them their login, and we have in caps, please take on a computer, because we have found that on tablets and phones, it doesn't work as well. So they will then log into their learner profile, take the written, and it's immediately graded and results are sent to the learner, including a coaching report. And I've run through this myself, so I've seen my coaching report for my passes and fails. And the results are recorded in the learner profile and in the AST calendar. So you will actually, as a trainer, see what they have missed. The learner only gets kind of a general overview as to categories that they've missed, but you will see you'll see what they've missed as well. So in point 6, it says trainers will receive all online exam questions. The learner only receives, as Susan mentioned, the randomized questions per topic, but you'll receive all of them. And what we're trying to do is we're not trying to keep anything from our trainers. We want them to be well equipped for how, what learners are missing, and being able to understand kind of, to better prepare trainers for the future as well, in terms of helping their learners pass and make sure that the curriculum is all, they're equipping their learners through the curriculum for the online exams. The trainer is invoiced only, in point 7, the trainer is invoiced only for the learner who passes both the written and practical. And I think Susan's mentioned this, but when they've passed the practical, if they don't pass the written, we won't invoice you. It's the same as always. We will only invoice you for those that are going to be able to receive a certificate. And if they haven't passed the written, we won't be invoicing you. That said, there will be a 21-day window to take the written exam. So the learner will have 2 attempts. And I've already had this question come up from a couple campus, a couple trainers, which is some people, they've administered the written exam at the course. That's still possible. But a lot of now you'll have the option of learners being able to actually go home and take it at home, since they have that 3-week window to take it twice and to pass it twice. And then once that happens, the certificates will be available immediately on the learner profile once the invoice has been paid, and that will automatically upload. So it's very similar in process. It's just an extra step with the online exam. But in terms of what the trainer does, it's not, you won't see a significant difference. It will be very similar in terms of everything else. And like I said, we know there's a lot more detailed questions and more technological issues that might come up. And we have that all outlined in the user guide that we will be sending before this goes live, as well as a webinar that will cover, you know, what you will see as a trainer and what the learner will see, so you know what to expect if there's any questions as well. Next slide. Yep. And so, as mentioned, we will have another one. We plan on having that date and time set by the end of this week. So by Friday, close of business, we will be getting that information out as to when the next one is, and it will be similar to this setup, but it will actually go through the entire process online, so you can see it live for yourself before it goes live and you actually have to be, it is actually implemented. And we'll review the accommodations policy that Susan mentioned. That will be finalized, and we'll be able to walk through that if there's any questions related to that. And so now with that, I think we'd love to open it to questions, if anyone has any.
All right, I see that we have some questions, and I'm just going to share those with Susan and Jess. So the first one is about access to the slides after this.
Yes, we can make these available. I'm just thinking the best way to do this, because I think we said this was being recorded as well. Is that correct, Sierra?
That's right, yep.
Okay, so we will make the slides available as part of this recording as well.
Sounds good. We can definitely make that happen. All right, and then we had another question. Among the student benefits listed in the information document, administrative fees with the introduction of the online exams, it says that standard training reports are released and made available to students analyzing areas for improvement. So they were requesting more information about how that works.
Sorry, can I repeat? I didn't quite get the question. What was the question again? Sorry.
It says, among the student benefits listed in the information document,
Yeah.
Administrative fees with the introduction of online exams, says that the standard training reports are released and made available to students analyzing areas for improvement. So what is that and how does it work?
Jess, is that something you want to pick up on when you've had your feedback as a student?
Yeah, I believe that's related. If I'm understanding this question correctly, it is related to the coaching report that you get as a learner. So for example, and you'll see this when we go through the webinar, we'll take you through a coaching report so you can see exactly what this looks like. And I think that will help clarify it. But really, it's as a learner, when you pass and when you fail both, you get a coaching report, and it categorizes the questions. It doesn't tell you specifically what question you got wrong, but it puts it in a category. And so you have an idea as to kind of the general idea that you missed. And so in terms of analyzing it for improvement, it's related to the curriculum, so it's grouped similarly. So I think that you would know, I'm trying to think, for example, something that I got wrong. If it was like, it makes sense when you go through it. I'm trying to think of it offhand and I can't. If I could pull one up, I would show you. But really, it shows kind of general ideas of that you've missed, and so I feel like the learner would have an idea as to how to improve moving forward, because it's based strictly off the curriculum and what the trainer taught.
I think probably as an example, if you take Introduction to Coffee, within Introduction to Coffee, there are certain topics such as, you know, the historical development of coffee, different processing methods, different brewing methods. And so your coaching report will tell you that within the section on the origins of coffee, or the origins and distribution of the spread of coffee, within that section you got a question wrong. Or within a section on processing methods, you got 2 questions wrong. I think that's what you're referring to, Jess.
Yeah.
So it's with each of the modules is divided into sections. So, for example, in brewing, it might be a section on grinding, it might be a section on water, it might be a section on different brewing methods. Again, you'll be told that within the section on brewing methods, you got 2 questions wrong. That's what the coaching report will tell you. We don't want to say specifically you got this question, this question, and this question wrong, because in time it could be very easy to sort of, you know, compare reports, etc., and say, well, I know now what the correct answer is to that question, etc. But you'll certainly know within a section which areas you'll need to focus on again if you're going to retake the exam, or even if you pass the exam but you maybe fell down on one particular section where you're weaker than perhaps in the other sections, you'll know this is an area to focus on as you progress perhaps up to intermediate level.
And we can definitely touch on this in the next webinar too.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I was just going to say, as we have the next webinar, we will actually show you what a coaching report looks like, and that will make it a lot clearer to see.
It will.
All right, and then we had the next question about prices being communicated to students. So what prices, and also we might want to touch on when.
Yes, I mean, if I don't know if you've had access to the blog post, there was some information there about what the pricing structure will look like. It showed you the current prices, and then it showed you what the prices would be like after the introduction of online exams. That blog post, I think, is actually available on the sca.coffee website under education. Is it news items, Sierra? But yeah, it's on the website, and that shows that there are news updates. There are 2 tables there. One is in euros, the other is in dollars, and that will give you the pricing that you'll need to show to your learners.
And then we have a couple questions about translations, about ensuring the quality of the questions asked and also the quality of translations. Do you want to speak to that?
In terms of the quality of the questions asked, I mean, these questions have been developed by teams of people. It's not one person writing the questions. They've gone through multiple checks, etc., before going to translation. When they've gone to translation, we are actually using a translation company that already had involvement with the coffee industry. They have banks of sort of words which they keep adding to, and so we ran one of our previous, I think it's professional level exams through this particular company. It's a new company for us to use, and the feedback was actually this was a perfect translation. There were no issues with it whatsoever. Now, having said that, you know, perfection doesn't exist in the world. We know that. If there are some issues with the exam, obviously we will, as soon as we're made aware of that, we can make adjustments. We are only introducing the foundation level at this stage. If we're getting feedback which shows consistently there's a problem with a particular question, and if that problem appears to be down to the translation, then of course we will address that with the foundation level. But obviously when we move to the intermediate and the professional level, we will have that knowledge and we can make those changes. The one, well, one of the many advantages of the online exam is you can run reports. At the moment, with a paper-based exam, there's a limited amount of data we can collect from those exams. With an online exam, we can run reports to see, is there a question that's consistently answered wrongly across the board? That makes us think there's a problem with that question. Or is there a question that's consistently answered incorrectly by, for example, learners in Korea? That will make us think there's a problem with the translation rather than the question. And there's so many different levels we can get to, by trainer, by country, by topic, by a specific question. The data that we'll be able to get from these online exams is ultimately going to help us improve the whole of the education programme. But in terms of the translations, if there is an issue, we will know about it pretty quickly. I hope there won't be, but if there is, we will do our very best to amend it very quickly as well. Again, when we have our next webinar, we're going to go into more detail about the translations, how to access the different translated versions of the exams, and you'll be shown how that will actually work in practice.
And just to clarify, we're still waiting on translations for all of the 12 languages. Are any of them ready yet? This was also a question.
We have the translations, they have been done, but there is a process now to input those translations into the question bank. So, you know, it's not a direct copy paste or a direct download of an Excel spreadsheet. It's quite a complex process that we have to go through. That process is taking place at the moment. And when the translations come to us, they come to us in a specific file. They don't come to us in a Word or an Excel or a PDF. They come to us in a specific format which fits into our online exams providers program.
Great. And for people who already have bookings for the coming months, how do you recommend that they handle that with the adjusted price?
Right, so if you have a course booked, say for August or something like that, I think the messaging to give is that SCA will be introducing online exams, and as I said, we want to give a month's notice, so you can give your learners a month's notice as well to say, you know, if your course is taking place after, say for example, we said it was going to be June the 29th, you would know by March the 29th that this was happening. And so therefore you would have at least a month to tell your learners, well, your course is taking place once the SCA has introduced this new process, and as a result you will be subject to an additional fee for taking the exam. That would be the way to address it.
Great. And then with this switch, are the online exams timed?
Yes, they are. They are timed, and there is quite a strict timing as well. I know people have said in the past, well, what if the student starts looking up things in books, on the internet? Well, yes, obviously we know that might happen. We know we're pretty aware of that, but these exams are very strictly timed. A student won't have time to be looking up the answer to every single question. You know, they're timed fairly, but they are strictly timed. At the moment, I think a written exam, there's quite a lot of time to answer the written exams, especially at foundation level. The timing is a lot more rigid, strict, whatever the term is. You know, they're fair, but there is not a huge amount of time.
And just to confirm, learners can't take the exam on iPads or tablets, only on computers. They can, but in terms of functionality, it looks best on the computer.
You know, you might lose some of the. You should get a sort of perfect 100% exam to view on a computer. Some of the exams have got pictures in them. They're not all A, B, C, D, tick the right answer. Some have sort of label items on a picture, just as they are in the written exams. So some of that functionality might not be of a 100% clarity as it would be on a computer. But we certainly would not recommend taking them on a phone. That you will lose a lot of the functionality on a phone.
Okay. And then I see we've also had a couple questions about invoices. I believe there was one about what will happen with past invoices, and then also for going forward, if the exam fees will be invoiced after the student has taken the written exam, or if it needs to be paid prior to the online exam.
It'll be afterwards. Jessica, do you want to answer some of these? Because I know you've been having discussions with the accounts team around invoicing as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So one of the questions, yeah, absolutely. So the question related to invoicing, so in terms of the written, you will only be invoiced at the end of the written and the practical. So it's not separate invoices, it's one, and they have to pass both. So you won't be invoiced at all if you have a learner that passes the practical and doesn't pass the written after 2 attempts. But we won't be invoicing before the written. It'll come at the end of everything. After the course, the practical and the written, and both are passed, that's when we will then invoice you for that. And Sarah, was there another question related to that? I didn't catch the other one. I just
believe I saw something about past invoices, but we can come back to that later.
Okay, yeah. But no, it will not be. It won't be invoiced before the online exam. Everything is following it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just to really reiterate that with this transition to online exams, all the exams eventually are going to be online, and there will be no more written, like paper, hard copy exams, even though some people maybe prefer that.
Yeah, all the exams will transition to online, and if the exam is available in a translation in your language, the learner must take the online exam. But there is the exemptions policy, for example, around issues around disability, illness, if there's some unforeseen problem with the internet, or, you know, there are always reasons why there might be an exception. So there is an exceptions, I think we call it a special considerations policy. But to be clear, that once the transition takes place and the online exam is available in your language, that is the only exam that the learner can take.
Okay, great. All right, and then we had a question about someone offering to pay the administrative or the online exam fee for their students. Is that something that's possible? Is that?
I mean, the way that you structure your fees in terms of fees for your courses, etc., as you know, it's down to the AST. We will just collect that half of the certification fee plus online exam fee, sorry, plus exam fee, which is now the administrative fee. You know, the invoice that you receive, it really doesn't matter who pays that invoice. It's just that's the invoice that gets paid to SCA.
Okay. And then I had a question about whether instructors can take the exam as well to see what they're like.
I think we're going to walk you through an exam. I know Jessica's been having discussions with Dorit about this. And actually, apologies, I know you would have seen on Facebook that Dorit was going to be one of the presenters on this, but unfortunately she was unable to attend. But Dorit will be running the next webinar as well. But there have been discussions around that. Jessica, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, we will be doing that.
And then we also have a couple questions about a coaching report, whether or not it's possible to get that between a first failed attempt and attempting the second time.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And yeah. In coaching reports, can you refer to the reference literature?
Yeah, so you will, so when the learner fails, let's say they take Barista Skills Foundation online written and they fail it, they immediately get a coaching report of the items they failed. And then they have the full 21 days to take the exam twice. So whenever they took that first one, they have 21 days to take the second one as well. And they receive a coaching report so they know the areas that they missed and can go back to their trainer or just, you know, go back to reference notes or whatever that looks like for them, and then take it again. And I've actually done that. So, and then they get a coaching report if they fail again, but hopefully they don't. But yeah, they do get the coaching report between the first after the first fail before they take the second one.
All right, sounds good. And then something I think we should let everybody know is if they want to email in questions, those can go to what address? What's the best place to direct those so that we can kind of compile those?
Yeah, exams@sca.coffee.
All right, I'm just going to drop that in the chat. And how much choice do students have about the language they want to take the exam in?
Well, there'll be an option of 12 different languages, and they pick the language that they wish to take the exam in.
That's good news, because I've seen in several of these questions that in the past there's been some issues of translation availability, so that should open up a lot more accessibility to people.
Yes, yeah, we have those 12, and again, as ASTs, you'll actually see this when we walk you through the process of taking an exam. What the learner will see when they come to take the exam, you'll see that there are different flags for the different languages, flags or the word, you know, Italian, French, Portuguese, whatever, but they are actually on the exam. But you'll see that when we walk you through the process.
Great. Well, I think we are coming to the end of the questions for now. We've answered the majority of these, and I think that some of these are going to be answered when they're requesting more in-depth information, especially around invoices and payment. That this is something that we'll be addressing in the next webinar. If anyone has any other last questions, please drop those in the chat. I see we have some questions about who's grading the exams.
They're automatically marked. That's the advantage of the online exams. There's no, you're going to get consistent marking. It's a automatic. I'm not a techie person, but it's a computerized process.
Okay, so it's totally automated.
That's the word. Thank you. Yeah, it's totally automated. Yeah.
And is it? I'm seeing some questions about whether or not it's all multiple choice.
They are multiple. There are variations of multiple choice. So some maybe pick out one of four. Some maybe pick the correct answers. Some might be pick the correct word. Some might be identify something on a picture. There's a sort of drag and drop option, I think, as well. So they're not just a pure choose A, B, C, or D. We've tried to get as many different types of questions in there as possible, just as there are at the moment on the written exams.
Great. And then a question about timing. How long does it take in terms of time for learners to see the written exam instructions once the AST passes the practical exam?
In theory, it's instant as far as I know. Is that correct, Jessica?
It is. Yeah, it is
instant,
actually.
yeah.
Okay. And what is the platform being used for online exams? The exam provider that we're working with?
Or are they talking about QuestionMark?
QuestionMark.
Oh
yeah, provided. Yes, it's QuestionMark. The company's QuestionMark, and this is a company that provided SCAA exams under the old, when we were two separate associations. So we have a long history of working with them.
Great. Let's see. So we know what the platform is. The exam grades are automated. There's multiple formats, multiple choice, and other formats. You can let me know in the questions chat if you feel like we went over invoices enough, because I'm seeing multiple questions about invoices, and I don't know if that's something we want to go in more in depth next time. We do have time to talk about it more today. Just let me know in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. And I see that we have two people putting their hands up to speak with us. So let me just get that set up so that we can go to that.
That's great.
Let's see. All right, so when I see your hands up, I'll unmute you. I'll start with Jim Watson.
Hello, Jim.
Jim, you're unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hello. That's it.
Hello, Jim.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. All I'm worried about, I think you've done a fantastic job. The practical, that will never ever be online, will it?
No. Practical is an in-person exam.
Good. That's fine by me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Oh, did I cut you off?
No, there was a bit of feedback.
All right. All right, I'm just getting our next speaker here. All right. Shanyon Lo, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Hello.
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 Not hearing anything. Did you have a question for us? All right, maybe there's some connection issues. You can wave your hand again if you want to have something to say. We're going to go on to the next person for now. Maria Esther Lopez Tom, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning to all of you.
Hi, Maria, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. I was a lead instructor in the Green Coffee Foundation at SCA Expo. At the moment that we were like doing all the things with the test, the exam, the written exam, we realized that the test is really changed. I would like to know if these changes that you're doing on the test are already on the curriculum. Because when we were, Ben and me, we were seeing the questions and I said, oh my God, the test is changed. But I didn't realize that in the class, in the curriculum of the class, if these changes are already listed as part of the class. So I would like to know if you are doing changes in all the tests and if these changes are going to be on the curricula.
Do you want to take that one, Jessica? Because I'm not quite sure what was delivered at Expo.
Yeah, I'm actually a little confused too, because I was under the impression that the exam was the same that it always has been for the written. You're talking about the written part of, or for the green coffee, it was not?
Yes, it was not, no. Because in fact, I gave a course in February, March, and the test is totally different. And we were talking about that. The other lead instructor and me, we were saying, oh, they changed the test and it's different. The format was different. So I don't know if this is now. Of course, every time that I'm going to give a course, I check the curriculum to see if there is something new. But I would like to know if this is something that is happening in all the courses, in all the programs, I mean, and if these changes are already in the curriculum. So trainers, AST can go and know that there has been made some changes on the test.
The only thing that's happening with the test is that we're writing additional questions, a lot more questions for the online exams. And we are going to make those tests, every single one of the questions, available to the trainers. Obviously only in the modules that you teach, but they will be made available to you. In terms of the curriculum should be that you delivered at Expo should be the same as it always has been. The only things that will be changing is maybe some of the curriculum might be restructured slightly, so that when I talked about the different topics, for example, that the questions will be grouped more among, within those topics. The actual content won't be changing, but there will be perhaps the curriculums might be reordered almost to match the way the online exams are being written as well. And obviously, we will, if that's going to happen, then we will make you aware of that, and you'll be the changes will be pointed out. But we're not having a wholesale relaunch of the CSP. It's taken us this long to get the CSP in place, to get it translated. So there might be some changes, and to be honest with you, at the moment, as far as we're aware, it's only going to be the barista and the brewing curriculum, which are being slightly reordered. Again, the content won't change, but it will be reordered. There may be just a couple of additional points to reflect questions in the online exams. But as I said, it's not a complete relaunch of the CSP. You will be made aware of that. You'll be pointed out, you know, this point here actually relates to the question in this particular section. But I would like to investigate that point that you mentioned about the green coffee exams. And I think you said you were working with Ben on that. So I think I'll talk to Ben about that and see exactly what's happened with that one.
It was.
I'm not.
No, it was not that there was something on the exam. It looks like the exam was bigger. It was like there were more questions. It was. I'm talking about the other trainer, not Ben in education, because he was not with me on the course. It was the other league instructor from Atlas. I think that his name is Drew, not Ben.
Oh, Drew Billups. Yep.
Drew, exactly. When we were, doing all the tests, and we were trying to put the grades that the students got in the test, we realized that the test is different. And I told him, oh, the test is different now. And he said, yes. I had to go fast to see the program to see if there were some changes on the curricula, but the test was different. So that's why I'm asking you that, because I gave a course in March and it was not like this test.
Yeah, okay, I think we're going to have to, we'll do some investigation.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Ben, who's actually in education, and then follow up on an email with you, because
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Maria.
you. And thanks, Jess.
All right, I think we have time for one more question from Milo, who's been waiting patiently. Go ahead, Milo.
Hi, everyone. Do you hear me?
Hi, yes, we hear you. Thank you. Hello.
Yes. So I didn't really catch what you guys talked whether my question being answered or not. The only question is like, who will control this, and does the student also be able to do the exam online with an open book?
No, it's a closed book exam.
But in terms of, they can do it at home.
They can do, yes, and the questions, they are strictly timed. You may have missed this bit, Mila. We were saying that when the student comes to take the exam, we recognise that some people might want to be looking up answers. There won't be the time to look up the answer to every single question on the exam. The timing is very strict, and also back to the original point about the whole of the course and the exams. We are also testing practical skills. If that student can't pass a practical exam, they won't even be able to take the written exam. They will have to pass both the practical and the written exam to get the certificate. In terms of running the exams, it's entirely possible that the student might take the exam immediately after they've done the course. It depends how the training centre is set up. I take your point. A student might go home and start trying to look up answers, but these are randomized tests. At the moment, with the written paper exam, every single paper exam is the same. But with the randomized test, student A will get a different set of questions to student B. There's no easy way of saying, well, I know roughly what the questions are that are going to come up because I've talked to so and so, etc. Because we have such a good bank of questions now that there will be a variety of different questions. And also, it's not going to be as simple as the A, B, C, or D. And especially as you move through the different levels, it won't just be a simple matter of looking up, what is that? Does that equal that? They will get more and more complex as you move through intermediate and professional. And even when you think of some of the visual questions, the ones that you can't just answer by looking something up, it's something you would have to know the answer to in order to be able to answer the question.
Okay, there will be no also writing questions?
No. There might be some where you have to fill in the correct word.
Okay, good. That's answered the next question from me. Would we be able also to do it
Yes, you'll be walked through an exam. You will be walked through an exam as trainers next time we have the next webinar.
Okay.
And
Cool.
you will have the full bank of questions for your module or modules that you teach as well.
Okay. Cool. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That'll be it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. I see that we've had some more questions come in. Not all of them have been specifically about fees and online exams. We will definitely be responding to all of these regardless. And these questions have been really helpful because they're also letting us know what we want to talk about more in the coming webinar in a week or two. So if you didn't get your questions answered during this last hour, don't worry. We'll be addressing all of them, and we'll be communicating where you can find those answers, whether it's going to be in additional blog posts, education updates, the AST group, or specific articles or the AST mailing.
And if I could just add to that, actually, we are also developing frequently asked questions, an FAQs document. We've tried to anticipate as many questions as possible, but the questions that you are giving us will really help us into sort of structuring more questions into that document. And also any questions that we haven't had a chance to answer, as Sierra said, we will address at the next opportunity, but they will probably also feed into the FAQ document, which will be made available to all our trainers, because we recognize that, you know, it's great that a lot of you have been able to attend this webinar, but the vast majority of our trainers haven't been able to. So to have your questions feed into the FAQs is going to be really helpful to us as staff, and also to the rest of your community of trainers as well. So thank you for those.
All right. Well, I see we have a few more hands raised, and we have another 7 minutes. So shall we answer those? I see we have Gustavo Paparoni.
That sounds good.
Please keep going. Yeah.
Gustavo, go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Gustavo. We're fine, thank you.
Fine, thank you. Yes, I have a little questions. One is, what if the students want to do the courses after finishing the course? I mean, they bring the computer and it's allowed for the AST to let them do it right away?
Yes. The only requirement is the student must have taken and passed a practical exam, and once the trainer has indicated past practical, just as you would do now when you request a certificate, that will release the online exam to the student, and the student can take it there if they want to. Obviously each student will get a different exam, but that's the advantage of the randomized online exams.
Okay, I got it. And the other question is, are you changing the time duration for courses, as the exams are now allowed to do it at home? Maybe 7 hours. You always have some time for the exam. So now these 7 hours are more training, or should I do it in 6, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't actually really addressed that properly yet. I mean, at the moment, you know, we do specify minimum hours. You're correct in that. And at the moment, that includes running an exam. We will look at that, Gustavo. It is a good point. But in theory, yes, you will have more time to run a course, yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So it's okay.
Excuse
and
me.
The last question, it's okay, no problem. And the last question is, how do I know that my student passed the written exam? Is only when I get the invoice, or is any other way?
You will be alerted to the result, to the outcome of the student's exam as well. I've just confirmed that today. The trainer will also find out whether or not the student has passed the written exam.
Thank you very much. My best regards to Susan and Jessica. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, Gustavo.
Thank you.
All right, and it looks like we have another question from Maria. Maria, do you want to go ahead? Oh, I guess not. All right, then we're going to go to Walter. Go ahead, Walter.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, Walter, how are you?
Hello, hi, thanks for all the information. I just want to react shortly on the practical, taking the written only after passing the practical, because usually I take the written after the practical, even if they have to do a retake for some part of the practical, which can be, for instance, only the latte art part of the barista, or only Le du Café part of sensory skills. And often those students, they're scoring 90% or more on the written, so they don't have a problem with the written. It's just a small part of the practical where they need some more practice, and they can retake it. And yeah, I would really like it that way, that it's possible that they can do already the written, even if they didn't finish the whole practical. And then, of course, still they need to finish both parts before the certificate can be issued.
Yeah, I see your point there. I think we have had some discussions around the way what would happen with the practical, particularly if a student didn't quite get one part of the practical and might have to retake a part of the practical. That's kind of what you're saying, isn't it? Or redo a part of the practical, or they're not ready to take a part of the practical. Can I take your question, Martin? We'll come back to that at the next opportunity, and and if it's not, then I'll come back to you separately on that particular point, because it is a kind of discussion that we've been having internally anyway. The way that it's set up, it's kind of a systems thing. We do have to have this process whereby we have pass practical plus pass written equals generate certificate, and we can't really have pass written plus pass practical equals generate certificate, because if a learner fails a practical exam and then wishes to retake it, they might then have to wait another 21 days to do the practical exam. But it's kind of a systems thing. But if I can come back to you on that, Walter, I'll have a discussion with my colleagues, Dorit and Kay, who are really the two people with the most technical knowledge around this. And we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I have your details. I'll make sure that we do that. It may not be within the next day or two. It might be next week. Can I just be clear about that?
Yeah, perfect. Fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. One last question I think we have time for. Dan Lacey has his hand up, so let's go to you, Dan.
Hello there, how you doing?
Hi, Dan, how are you?
Hello.
Yeah, really good, thank you very much. Hello, thanks for all the information, it's been really useful. I just had a question regarding someone fails the practical. What we've had to do previously is to fail them, and then when they come back and resit, we then have to create a fake course, essentially, to add the details into. So it gives a different date. Is this going to be addressed? Is there going to be a way of saying that they've passed on a resit? Do you want to record that data, or do we continue creating another false course, filling out the details, adding them in, pressing pass, and then they'll get access to do their written?
Yeah, that kind of ties in with probably the previous question. We'll take a note of that. It's almost another sort of, again, it's related to the infrastructure, the technology around this whole thing. But it's a good question, and one which I probably would like to, rather than give you a sort of an answer that I'm not 100%, we've fully explored yet. Can I get back to you on that one as well, Dan, if you don't mind?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. As long as we know what to do, then that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, even if you're running the course, I mean, some of the trainers said, well, sometimes I run a course, but I won't run the exam until a week afterwards, because I'd like my students to put some of their learning into practice before they take their practical exam. And that's still fine. If you run a course and then 5 days later you're going to run the exams because your student has a chance to put their learning into practice, in the workplace or whatever, that's still fine. They can take the practical exam 5 days later, and then you would press pass practical, which releases a written exam. That would still work. But you're questioning a slightly different scenario where they might have failed the practical and then you'll want them to retake. So we'll take that question back and get back to you on that, Dan.
Okay, thank you. And also, just lastly, if you want to set a time limit on that as well, because previously I was just told it's sort of up to you as a trainer, but if you teach somebody and they come back within a couple of months, then they're still remembering stuff. If they come back to you 7 months later and they want to do their practical, then they're then going to take their written. they might struggle to remember some of it if they haven't taken good notes.
Yes, yeah.
So just whether you want to
is-
put a time limit on it, I think 3 months seems fine. You know, if they're committed, they're going to make the effort, but we've never had a limit. So if there is one, please let us know.
Yeah, okay, will do. Noted, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, well, we're up to the top of the hour. I think I speak for everyone. I say a big thank you to everyone who joined us today for all the excellent questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate your taking the time, either out of your mornings or out of your evenings, and I'm sure for some of you it's nighttime as well. You know, having this interaction with trainers, it really helps us. I hope it's been helpful to you. Please keep the questions coming. We have exams@sca.coffee, you know, and we will be organising another webinar in which we'll go into some of these points into more detail. We'll run through an exam with you, which so you can see from the trainer point of view what will be required, but you'll also see what the learner sees. I think it's really important that you have the opportunity to do that as well. So, you know, from me, thank you very much. Really appreciate this time, and look forward to speaking to you all soon.
Yeah,
Jess, did you want to say anything? Yeah.
No, that wraps it up. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.